dad and your granddad are who?
My granddad is Graham Hill, 2-time world champion, and my dad is Damon Hill, 1-time world champion. But it is quite funny sometimes because you just didn't realise when I was younger how privileged I really was. And I started at a new school, and one of the projects was talk about your summer holidays. So I talked about my summer holiday, which was going on a private jet to Marbella. And the room kind of went from 10 years old onwards. I really started to realise how special it was to be part of the family and have dad as who he is.
So when then did you decide I want to give racing a go?
It was literally kind of like a thunderbolt out of the blue.
And in terms of learning, how involved was your dad?
It's a contentious area, George. I look back on it and go, oh, what a fucking idiot.
We've actually introduced a brand new challenge. It's called the BBC.
Okay, hi kids, welcome back to Backseat Drivers Podcast. Today we are joined by a fantastic man, Josh Hill.
Hello.
Woo!
Thank you.
Right, Josh, first things first. As we've just discussed, you're going to be the first participant
I'm the first one.
of
What an honour.
the BBC.
Yeah.
The BBC.
Backseat Drivers Bop It Challenge.
Right.
Right.
Shouldn't it be BBI?
Do you know your way around one of these at BBC?
Of course I do. Come on. I'm not this specific model.
Oh, the rules are, the first attempt is just a practice.
Right.
Second attempt is the score that's going to go on our leaderboard.
And it's just twist and pull.
And bop it, obviously.
And bop.
And bop.
Of course, that goes without saying.
Twist, pull and push.
Right.
Right,
Is
I'm
this
just
the
going to
right way
get
to
my
hold it?
notes app out.
Look,
in a
however you
professional
want.
way.
That seems like the best sort of access to all the controls here.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Just press the button.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Is this going to be the start of the pod? Is you just watching me play Bop It for
Yeah.
5 minutes or so?
Right, so pull it first.
Pull it.
There we go.
Okay.
Now bop it.
All right. What's this testing exactly?
Reaction times, hand-eye coordination.
Everything.
Right, okay.
I got distracted by Gus laughing.
No, well, I love the awkward silence as you're like looking up.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'm
bop
like-
it, pull it. And you're like,
Okay, so that's your practice attempt.
But
So
again,
this is your official score.
Oh. Bloody hell. Who got 100?
Jordan.
Yeah. Expert.
Really focusing.
Oh, he's on a roll now.
I'm really focusing.
He's popping. He's...
Oh, right. Listen for the score. 12.
All right, okay.
Our next guest has got a tough score to
We've
beat.
got 12
That's
for
going to be a
Josh
tough one
Hill.
to beat, guys. I don't know about that one.
Oh, you're going to put it on our notes?
I'll put it on notes.
It's like I didn't pursue a career in a professional Bop It player. I
Yeah.
think that's the role. Yeah.
Okay, Jordan, open us up with the sort of serious stuff now.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Hit me with the hard stuff.
with the hard
The
stuff.
hard stuff.
Well, actually, no, first of all, what have you been up to recently? I heard, obviously, you've been working in F1. What exactly is your job?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Expert Hosts, and we are contractors to the Paddock Club, which is the kind of VIP hospitality. You've probably seen them going around on trucks getting booed by all the fans.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. It started out as a kind of joke, but it's become like quite vitriolic recently.
Is that just because people were like...
They just see a truck full of people who got VIP passes and think they're super rich.
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
it's just stupid though, because a lot of the people who are on the truck are kind of just people from the local office for where you are, and they just had a nice day out given to them by the company, so they got us X amount of passes. Yeah, so all the celebs, and it's the funniest one where you got like a X-Race, F1 driver and F1 ambassador like John Lacey going around, and they're all going boo, and you're like, it's John Lacey.
Yeah, they have no
What are you
idea.
doing?
They just think it's a guest.
Yeah. I'm one of the MCs for the Expert Hosts, and it's my third year doing that now. So just kind of interviewing drivers and team personnel, and in the suites, and generally kind of just enhancing the kind of weekend experience for the guests, and being an expert host, right? So you kind of know more about the sport, so you can inform them a bit better about what's going on, answer their questions, run activities for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun. Yeah.
It's a really cool job because, like, you have a passion for racing, yet you get to go to all these amazing tracks to watch cool races, have a good time. Obviously, you've got to do some work.
Yeah, it is work at the end of the day, but I'm not saying it's an office job either. So,
It's not.
Yeah, it's good fun. So, microphone just did it fall down?
Jeez.
It might have done. It might have sort of.
Just tilt it.
It needs to be erected again.
Yeah, that's fine.
So one of our first questions, and to give viewers some context as well, your life, your dad and your granddad
Yeah.
are who?
My granddad is Graham Hill, 2-time world champion, and my dad is Damon Hill, 1-time world champion.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not bad.
It's pretty cool.
I'm Josh, 0-time world champion. So. Yes.
So we've got who dad and granddad were. I want to know from the start, early life of Josh, what is it like? It's a very unique household growing up in that environment. Obviously for you, no, but for the general viewer, what is it like growing up with a family with 2 world champions, or 2-time world champion and 1-time world champion?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird because like when you're a kid, you don't really know I thought everyone's dad went racing. I thought it was like a kind of normal thing because it wasn't just that, my dad who he is, I was surrounded by it as well. So a lot of the people we knew, I met growing up, and like we knew were all from kind of related to motorsport, from the world of motorsport, and they'd all kind of done these kind of special things. And so I thought I sort of met enough people at a very young age that I just generally thought it wasn't that special. So I almost kind of put that down to why I kind of started so late myself, because I just thought that like, it's boring. It's just I don't want to do what my dad does. It's kind of one of them. So, I mean, looking back on it, I had a really nice, privileged upbringing, and it's come from dad's hard work, and my mum's like amazing kind of looked after dad behind the scenes, obviously, and like and I got an older brother with Down syndrome as well, so it was us two together really. My sisters kind of came on a little bit later on, and but we've all had it. We're quite a tight family really, and it was a nice upbringing to have. But to me, it wasn't actually that kind of like special in that sense, because
it's all you know, right?
Well, yeah, I never had. It wasn't like I had something different before, and then it changed later on. I was born the year dad got into Formula One, so he got into Formula One in like 91, 92 as a test driver, or with Brabham, and I was born in 91. So you
were only like 6 when he won the world championship?
5, yeah.
5, okay.
Yeah, so I literally I didn't know it. I don't know any different really. So, yeah, it's a weird one because people always ask me that, like, it must be quite special. I'm like, well, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah,
to me, it's not really. So,
well, did you then grow up? Interestingly, you said in that you didn't want to do what dad did, like that's not cool kind of thing. And you also said you started late.
Yeah.
So you didn't grow up with a kind of, I really want to do what dad's done and I really want to get into motorsport, or did your family kind of let that happen naturally and pick your own way? There was no external pressure to like, you've got to go into motorsport, you've got to give it a go.
There was definitely no external pressure. In fact, they are fully kind of, they almost like made an effort to kind of not bring it up as much as possible. Because to be honest, I'm not going to lie, like me and dad chat about Formula One like after a weekend maybe.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not really a big, like motorsport. It's not a massive topic in our household, and it's never really been. We're not kind of what you'd call like a kind of motorsport family, like we're not mad about motorsport, We've got, other interests and other things going on in our lives. So I'll rephrase what I said earlier, which is that I wasn't going to do it because it was like what dad did. I just didn't think it was a possibility, right? I kind of saw him doing it and went, oh, that's cool. And then just kind of like, I was quite a dumb kid, so I didn't really I didn't really clock that I could go and do that too.
Okay.
And when we were growing up, because of dad was teammates with Ayrton Senna in '94, when he passed away, and after that, there was a rule in our house that between my parents that they basically wouldn't show the Formula One on television, just in case. I mean, me and my brother were very young at the time, but just in case we were watching and something happened to Dad, and we'd see that at a very young age. So, you know, motorsport's dangerous, so you can never
and
know.
it really was back then.
You knew what was going to happen to it, and so I don't think that anyone had that on there.
No.
No one's betting on that for sure. So so yeah, I mean, it was only kind of like when I was maybe, you know, when Dad was in the kind of Jordan era, like 98, 99, that I started to realize, oh, this is actually something that's special to him. And that's obviously that sort of age as well, where you go to school and people asking, you know, what does your dad do and stuff. So yeah, he goes, oh, mine drives cars. What does your dad do?
I would have flaunted that so much. F1 world champion. That's pretty cool.
Every show and tell day is about your dad.
Bring my dad in. This is Damon.
It was funny. Like, you know, I don't like kind of like, you know, talking about our privileged upbringing, but it is quite funny sometimes because you just didn't realize when I was younger how privileged I really was. And I remember a time so we lived in Ireland for a bit, and we came back, and I started at a new school, and you know that thing a lot of the teachers get you to do, which is kind of like introduce yourself to the room. And they give you maybe a little project to do. And one of the projects was talk about your summer holidays. So I talked about my summer holiday, which was going on a private jet to Marbella. And the room kind of went like, I went, what's wrong with that?
It's normal, huh?
Yeah, just take the PJ.
It's funny how innocent you are. 10. Because you're not like flaunting it then, you're just...
It's just what
you'd think that's normal.
Yeah. Me and my sisters and my brother all went on a private jet to Spain. What was weird about that? So, now I realise it was a completely ridiculous situation. Like, it's so stupid. But back then it just felt completely normal. And I think it was like from like kind of 10 years old onwards, I really started to realise how special it was to be part of the family and have Dad as who he is. And that was kind of my kind of early upbringing, I guess, sort of completely oblivious, and then suddenly went, oh, it's actually quite special. Yeah. And then I started collecting Pokemon cards or something. So it's like, cool. And then carried on doing what I'm doing. So
if you want to become a racing driver like some of our lovely guests, and you're not really sure how to start because it seems like you need a lot of money and family connections that know the industry, etc. Well, now you have the perfect opportunity to prove you have what it takes on a completely level playing field. That's why we've created Forsetti. Forsetti is an online platform that guides you on how to start your racing driver journey and helps you develop your skills to climb up the ladder. We host time attacks every single week, and if you're the fastest driver, we put you straight into a car and integrate you in an established esports team racing against some of the best talent in the world. So if you think you're the best thing since sliced bread and you have what it takes, make sure to sign up at forsettirace.com. Link is also in the description. Back to the podcast.
So when then did you decide I want to give racing a go? When was that? How old were you? And why?
So it was literally kind of like a thunderbolt out of the blue.
Okay.
Obviously I knew what Dad did. I'd been to stuff that he'd done. And realised that people found it special and wanted Dad's autographs and stuff like that, which again didn't find that weird because people used to always come up to us in restaurants and ask Dad for autographs and whatever. But then he stupidly gave me a ride around Silverstone in a 2-seater GP Masters car. Do you remember GP Masters?
Yeah.
With like this, all the old boys.
Born, mate.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm too young.
It was basically a series for like all the old boys and ex-F1 drivers. So like Nigel Mansell was a major part of it. Kind of F3000-esque cars, and they just went racing. I don't know how long that lasted, but Dad didn't do it. But he got asked to do a day whizzing people around Silverstone in one of them, and he brought me along and gave me a ride. And then the next week I was like, so we go karting or something? But obviously I was 15, so a lot like yourself, Jordan. I was
Well, that's very late.
very late to motorsport and very late to kind of trying it out. And the first thing we did was go down Daytona Sandown and literally just have a little whiz round there and see if my times were decent enough, and it was okay. I'm not saying I was like idiot savant from the beginning. I was like, I'm really good at this, like not even trying. I wasn't at all. And then we did I was obviously 6'3", so like
Similar problem to me,
similar problem to you guys. You're quite tall as well. So it's all like parachutes, basically. If you get in a go-kart, like, I mean, I was
so bad in karting.
Yeah, I was a streak of piss back then, but it didn't matter. I was like stuck out like a sore thumb in the middle of the grid. But we did a year and a bit of Club 100.
Yeah,
which is
know that.
You know, I think that's more than enough.
Really. I think it's a great thing to do. If I said this the other day, if I had a kid, regardless of how much money I have, which I wouldn't even probably try and get him into it unless I knew I could fund him to at least a half decent level. But if I had a kid, I wouldn't go down this ridiculous like couple $100,000 a year to go karting around the world thing. I'll just do Club 100 because you just need to learn. In my opinion, karting's important, but it's not like the be-all and end-all when you have to do the fanciest thing ever. Because one, no one cares. If you go into cars later in life, no one cares if you've gone and won karting championships. Do you know what I mean?
How many karting world champions are there in the world? It's like a dime a dozen, really. But like, it's not taking away anything from them because it's insanely competitive.
Yeah.
But you can just go down this rabbit hole of karting, and it's like
what's new chassis, engines, everything.
The amount of people I raced against in my career that had done lots of karting before, but I was on par with them. You're kind of going, well, what was the point of all that karting, really? I mean, you kind of almost learn how to drive a kart, and then you get out and have to kind of unlearn a lot of that stuff to drive a car. There's definitely a lot of skills that you can get from karting that I definitely don't have, that I had to work really hard on, just off, like out of kart, basically out of kart, like looking at data, understanding kind of pressures of tire and whatever, just, you know, but there was a lot of stuff that I just took from instinct and just driving and being behind the wheel. And luckily, again, I was in a position where I could do quite a bit of testing in my sort of early career and stuff like that. So.
And in terms of learning, how involved was your dad? Was he a coach, or because obviously it's your dad
issue?
Sorry,
it's a contentious area, Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Like. I look back on it and go, oh, I was a fucking idiot. You know, I was like, just not listening. He was a world champion. You know? He beat Michael Schumacher, for God's sake, But at the end of the day, he'd still come and try and give me advice, and I'd go like, shut up, Dad. Can you just leave me alone? Just let me do it. Because I think we're despite us both doing racing, I think we're both very different personalities. And Dad will always come in and ask constantly, how can it be better, even if it's gone well. And I kind of just wanted to enjoy those little moments, but also if it's gone badly, kind of stay the hell away, let me kind of just decompress, and then I'll come to you. But that's probably why he was such a good test driver, because he,
feedback was great.
Feedback, exactly. He spent 2 years just giving feedback out of an F1 car. And to anyone, like the radio engineer was asking if the radio was clear enough, and he had to sort of do that while also testing all other parts of the car. So he was kind of manager, coach, etc. In my early days, and manager all the way through. We kind of, as we went on, I mean, teams that often have their own driver coach that kind of looks after all the drivers. And I sort of found it easier to listen to them because there wasn't that kind of like father-son friction going on.
I think that's a problem, isn't it? Like, regardless of whether your dad knows whether he's a world champion or whether he knows nothing, it's always just annoying, isn't it? Like,
it's just annoying.
There's something annoying,
about
even if they're being really nice and they're really giving great advice. There's something about, also if you're with each other a lot and you're being critiqued by them, I completely understand that. And my dad was never like that with my racing, but just in other walks of life, I just find myself getting unnecessarily annoyed. You know, if you spend a lot of time with them as well.
He's like on the golf course, honestly. Like, I hit a bad shot and he goes, something didn't go right there. I'm like, really?
No
Thanks
shit.
for that. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't like karting dad syndrome. That's another thing entirely. And he just wanted me to be the best I could. And, but when I was just, stroppy teenager, it's like different, and it's like, I don't know, it's just I didn't want to listen, and I wanted to do it for myself, and I wanted it to come from me and stuff like that. So I didn't really get into motorsport until very, very late. Did a year of Club 100s, just dip my toes in the water, see how I was getting on. I was decent enough to sort of get into cars, because I think that, again, for my size, it was like, the quicker we can get into cars, the better.
Yeah.
And Dad made a good point as well, which is like, he was never very good. By his own admission, he said he was not really anything kind of special to look at until he got into like 3000, and he had some power to work with. So it depends on the thing you're driving to. So I got into Ginetta Junior, scraped in by the skin of my teeth on the age range. I was 17, 8 days after their cut off. Yeah. So, so there's some pictures of me on the podium, like, 6 foot tall.
Did he have a beard as well?
Stubble.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Like, whose dad's entered the championship?
Yeah. Stood next to like Jake Hill and Sarah Moore when they were like, he's just starting out 14-year-olds with fresh face. I'm like, then did 2 years of British Formula Ford with Damon Racing, and 2 years of Formula Renault, one in the UK series, and then it folded, and then everyone went to NEC, and that was with Manor and then Fortec, and then I did a half season with Fortec in FIA European F3. That's where I
that was a steep learning curve as well, because you got it. I know I can relate to some degree getting into it late, going straight into single seaters, because Formula Renault UK was high level, especially actually in Eurocup. Formula Renault Eurocup was top stuff.
Yeah.
So like, how tough was that going straight from racing for only a couple years into that?
I mean, I never really thought of it like it's going to be tough. I just kind of went and I was almost so new to it that I was almost kind of oblivious to all that stuff. And I'm just going out there to try and drive as fast as I can. And but yeah, the UK series was tough. We had some discussions, I would say, with the team I was at the time in terms of setup, because Vortec were kind of miles away from us. So it made it slightly tougher. I was teammates with Jordan King and Alice Powell at the time for that season. And there were only 14 cars on the grid, but it was so tough. It was so tight. Just I celebrated getting a 6th place in qualifying once.
You only need a few drivers to be rapid, and it's all of a sudden really hard.
I mean, we had like Alex Lee and Ollie Rowland at the front, like leading the way, and they were so far away from us. It was silly. They were basically having neck and neck rate every single weekend, but we were sort of chasing their coattails a little bit. And I never really thought until I got to until I did a round in Eurocup, like I said, and then you kind of blows your doors off and you're like, oh right, this is what it's like, because they just run it so differently over there. Like, it's almost a completely different like meta, if you want to say that. It was like it was pretty crazy. It was a pretty eye-opening weekend. My first weekend, I think it was actually in Spa, was my first weekend in Eurocup.
That's maybe a rough place to do a debut as well.
You're looking around like, shit, this is hard.
I mean, during my UK season, I did halfway through, I dovetailed it with a NEC season as well with KTR, as teammates to Stoffel Van Dorn.
Oh shit!
Oh really?
And that was one of the first times when I went, "Oh right,
yeah,
this is," because I'd had quick teammates before, obviously.
Yeah,
I was teammates with Scott Pye. I raced against Jason Newgarden in my first season in single seaters in Formula Ford, and they were quick, and you could tell. But this is the first time I've really seen data comparison to me in a single seater of slicks and wings, with someone who I wasn't to know at the time, but eventually would be in a Formula One car, and it was just doing stuff with the car that I had no idea you couldn't even do at that time. I was so sort of naive to it all. So those were kind of the moments where I was like, holy crap, like, yeah, these guys are super fast, and I need to sort of get my act together if I want to sort of like, but it just kind of made me dig deeper really in terms of my performance and my kind of attitude to it. So yeah.
And did you have a real hunger at the time? Like, was it like Formula One, like do or die? Was that your mentality? It
was blinkers on, Formula One, do or bust basically. So
okay.
Because at the time, like, it seems silly saying it sat here now, but like at the time, you know, I'm being talked about in the same breath as my dad and my granddad. So it's like, how can I possibly go and do anything else, right? I have to go to Formula One. That's the only route. And also I was just so inexperienced with the world of motorsport that I didn't realize there was other options out there necessarily. You know, I got offered in Indy Lights drives and sports car drives, and I kind of was like, at the time I was like, no. It's staying in Europe and doing Formula One, or I'm not doing anything at all, which looking back on it was kind of maybe a bit of a close-minded approach. But
yeah, but I think if you've got a goal and you would regret it if you went to do Indy Lights, and then even if you had a successful career in IndyCar, you'd still be wondering your whole life, what could I have done? Could I have gone to Formula One?
Yeah.
But so one of my questions is sort of spin off of what you were just saying. Carrying that last name through motorsport, luckily I haven't like experienced it. Well, luckily and unluckily in some ways. There must be massive benefits to having that, having a family and a dad that knows so much about it. I'd say that's one of the disadvantages I had going into it. I don't know what yours was like, Jordan. You didn't come from racing background either.
No, like we were brand. It was just me and my mum. We had no idea what we were doing.
So
I didn't know what an apex was. Nothing. Like, I was just guessing.
So you make like wrong decisions.
That's the black thing that goes on the car, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I thought you were being racist for a minute.
Whoa, no, not at all.
I'm joking.
Wow.
I'm joking. Anyway, carrying that last name in motorsport.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like, did you kind of feel pressure to go to F1?
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, what was your mindset going into any racing, be it Ginetta Juniors up to Formula Renault, whatever it was you were doing? Did you feel like not an external pressure from your dad, but just a pressure that everyone knew who you were and who your dad was? Was there like a added pressure to succeed? Yeah.
In all honesty, there might have been, but I'm the type of person that just goes, can I swear?
Yeah. No, sorry, he was fiddling with his microphone.
Oh,
I'm the type of person that goes, you know, fuck them. Just kind of, they can think what they want.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm the one in the car doing the stuff. So, and it's the same attitude a lot of drivers, I think, have. As soon as they put that helmet on, the visor goes down. You know, the outside world is shut out, and you're there to go racing, and people can think what they think, but it's motor racing at the end of the day. Everyone's got like a fairly kind of equal attitude to it. And my dad never really he never wanted to put external pressure on me, because he knew himself firsthand what that would do.
Yeah.
In terms of the pressure he had growing up. I mean, his dad wasn't around, but the kind of external pressure from the media for him as well, you know, was exactly the same for myself. In fact, probably a bit more, because Granddad was such a character, such a kind of personality. That was, you know, back in the day, like the 80s, the sort of celebrity wasn't kind of a thing yet properly, not to the extent it is now. You know? So, you know, he tried as hard as he could to sort of meter out when to use the name, if that makes sense. So there were times to use the name, and there were times to go, it makes absolutely no difference here. Like, at the end of the day, you're the one getting in the car, looking at the data, driving the thing, and that's the attitude I took as well. It was just quite a natural kind of instinct to think like that. It wasn't anything kind of weird to me. No kind of extra pressure. Other than I was more scared of my like driver coaches and stuff like that. I had this Irish guy, I love him to bits, Stephen Colbert, but in Formula Ford. But you know, he was the one who would come in, and you'd go out and do like a pretty crap run, and you come in and go, "The fuck was that?" And you're like, "Sorry, I know, I don't know what I was doing there." So you know, I was more sort of wanting to,
Of course,
make them happy rather than you know, that was the pressure from the team and from my mechanics and teams that I wanted to do well for. You know, so that was it really. Yeah.
And you're on this route to Formula One. At what point do you kind of take this step back and stop the pursuit of Formula One? Like, what happened in your mind?
Yeah, it was kind of like I've always had other interests. I mean, I quit. I stepped back from motorsport to pursue music and play and do other things. And I've always felt kind of claustrophobic when I'm locked into doing one thing. I like to kind of explore. And what I was being told at the time was just like, you've got to literally devote your entire life to this to be in Formula One, which is absolutely correct. I mean, like you've got to do that. But at the end of the day, it was just making me really unhappy. And it sounds really like stuck up to say that and go like, I wasn't happy with going motor racing, which people would chop an arm off to go and do.
People forget how, well, it's hard to know until you're in it, but there's a lot of pressure I found as well, especially because there's so much money involved. It's so intense. The level you've got to push yourself to commit to pushing a car on the edge, where if you get it wrong, you're in the wall, could injure yourself. And the commitment you take, you lose a lot of social life.
Yeah.
Doing that relentlessly every single year, it's a normal thing because it's not a natural human thing to do.
Yeah.
You do sacrifice a lot. So even though it seems so glamorous, get to race cars, but there's a lot of sacrifice to it. So yeah, I think it's hard to imagine that.
Yeah, I don't think it's as stuck up. I mean, to the general viewer that's would die to go racing, I understand why they think that, but I kind of said the same thing when on our podcast with Enzo, and when sponsors or like I'm talking to sponsors guests on a race weekend, they're like, "This is so amazing, like I would love to have done this," and I'm like, yes, it is. Like when you're racing at Monaco or something, for me that was just like amazing. But at the same time, I was like, honestly, if I actually look at a race weekend, I'm not enjoying myself until I've crossed the finish line with a win or like with a good result,
or the car in one piece.
Because you go through like the whole weekend, you get to a level, and I think like with any sport where the fun of just doing it dies out and the fun of being successful comes in, if you know what I mean. That's where the fun then comes in. It's the competitiveness.
Yeah.
If you don't have that as strongly as someone like a Verstappen, it does just it can become and feel like a chore. And especially when you have weekend after weekend, obviously I haven't been like in the spotlight, but you know what I mean. You're on, in my case last year, racing on Formula One weekends, debut season in Super Cup, had a bit of an iffy year, to be honest, didn't perform that well, just had some bad luck as well. And it's just like,
knocks the wind out yourself.
Yeah, it really does. And we had one bad result, next bad result, and then it's just like a downward spiral. And you can have the upward spiral as well. But no, I don't think it's I think it's interesting to give the viewers that kind of perspective of, it's not like, oh, I go on my private jet or whatever. I definitely don't. I'm EasyJet all the way.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Once I was racing, I was just fully Ryanair every single weekend.
It's full on as well.
Not even speedy boarding either. So
But it's full on, and I mean, especially if you're in F1, F2. Even when I was doing Super Cup, I remember having like 6 or 7 back-to-back weekends, and you just start to like lose track of time, because I was only in the UK for like 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And again, huge privilege, like amazing to go and see places, to race at these places. It was like pinching myself at the same time.
Yeah.
But I almost had to remind myself that it was good, you know? Yeah. I had to be like, you are privileged. Like this is such an amazing experience, rather than just thinking the whole time like, shh, don't f it up, don't f it up.
There is definitely like a point in your career where it shifts to being something like that you're doing sort of seriously, like to get something, to get somewhere with it, but you're still also in that kind of learning process where there's not that much pressure. Like you're kind of given the kind of leeway to kind of learn and also just enjoy yourself. And you know, at the end of the day, like my parents the first thing they said was like, we just want you to be like happy and enjoy what you're doing. And they were saying that the whole time through my career, like, you know, just enjoy what you're doing. Don't kind of like take it like so seriously to the point where you don't enjoy it anymore. But there's definitely a point in careers where it shifts, doesn't it, from being like something that's semi-serious to, oh, this could be actually happening now, and like I've got to really like seriously take this on and live like a monk and be and you talk. I mean, I interview quite a lot of the drivers now in the Paddock Club, and you can kind of tell that, especially the newer ones or the ones who are kind of a bit younger, they've just lived motorsport their entire life, and they are either too young to have had more life experience, or they've only just got there, so they know nothing else, right? So they live and breathe it, and quite literally. And then you see like Valtteri Bottas or someone who's done it, you know, he's gone through Formula One. He's kind of like in his kind of late, and then even Alonso, you know, just like sort of having a laugh now, and he's still super fast. They're both still super fast, but like they are definitely in that kind of like, they can take it a bit more with a, you know, a smirk on their face a bit more now than they probably did when they were starting out. And for me, that was definitely, you know, there's definitely not just one thing, you know, that it was a big decision to make, and I'm not just putting it down to one thing at all. There was lots of stuff on the plate, but you know, you're kind of having to take it super seriously. At the end of the day, I really, really enjoyed driving and racing people, and that's the bit that I really looked forward to. But as you guys would know as well, it is 5% of the time that you're actually in the car for. The rest of the time is training and doing all the admin stuff behind the scenes, which admittedly during my career I didn't actually do too much of that, because Dad is the manager and he sort of had a bit more sort of sway in that respect. And so it's one of those. And I was sort of also kind of looking ahead to the people above me who are knocking on the door from the one, because it was going to be my turn next. You know, that's my next step for me after Formula 3 would be looking at Formula 1 teams. And in the next category I did, and I was already kind of in talks with a few teams to do sort of simulator stuff, and you're kind of looking at, like, you know, Antonio Felix da Costa and Robin Freins, and they're not getting to Formula 1. You're kind of, if they can't get in, and it's not because they were slow, it's just because F1 goes through these cycles, doesn't it, where it's just like doors are open, doors are shut, see you later, come back in 5 years, you know. And it was just kind of one of those, it really like took the wind out yourself, because you're like, even if I do as well as I possibly can, and I'm on this level, like, you know, Robin Freins won everything in his first year of asking everything, and he didn't get in. You're kind of going, you know, what chances do I really have? And rather than bang my head against the brick wall, I'd also like to explore other things in my life. And I'm really glad I did that. I'm really glad I went off and did all these other things. And I really enjoy playing music, and I still do to this day. I like I always say, I've played music longer than I've been in motorsport by almost double.
Is it the drums that you play?
Drums, yeah. A little bit of guitar, dabble on the piano. I can play, you know, a couple of things with one hand, but that's about it. Yeah, but
wish we had a piano here.
I was going to say, sing for me.
Don't even start. That's one thing I cannot do. So I did some backing vocals, but it was like the low drone at the back, holding one note, like that.
So what would be your dream with that? Is that still like an ongoing?
Well,
is it just a hobby, or is it something? Because you dropped out. I saw an article. I was doing a little bit of research on you, and
it's good that you do research.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Were you really?
I did my little bit.
Who
of
are you?
research. What I think obviously I know who you were, right? I know who you were, but I actually don't like to do too much because I want to actually get
Joe Hill.
Yeah. But I don't want to know everything before we get into the podcast. You know what I mean? Because I want to. The viewers won't know everything. I want to kind of ask the same questions as if they would in a conversation. That's my excuse anyway.
No, it's a good excuse. I reckon.
What was I going to say?
It's a lot better than being like, so on the day of the 23rd of November, you were doing this.
Yeah. I know what I was going to ask. So there was this article, obviously an old one, saying, you know, Josh Hill retiring from motorsport to pursue a music career.
Yeah.
What was the goal at that point? Was it like a genuine, right, music is what I'm going to do? What was the dream with music?
Just get as far as possible and enjoy it and try and get some success out of it. I never really went into it going like, I'm going to sell out Wembley, because that's just a ridiculous dream to have. But like, I love music. I love rock music. I've grew up with grunge music, and that's my start really into the music I listen to now. And it sounds really stupid because I honestly I hate doing stuff like Monaco and stuff like that, because it's just, I feel it's so kind of clean and and it's all about it. To me, it's priding sort of a lot of the wrong things, the things that not the wrong things, but the things that I don't deem kind of important in life. It's a massive,
just Monaco as a place in general. I just find it a bit of it's just an ego competition, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
It feels like a different world.
Yeah. Whereas I'm more than happy in some grungy dive bar in the middle of London. So we did well for ourselves. You can find us on Spotify, Severs, Severs, and we played Isle of Wight. We played Silverstone Fan Zone quite often. That was quite an easy gig for me to get. I just hit up some contacts and played the campsites as well in Silverstone for the MotoGP and the F1 as well, which is hilarious. It was good fun. And then something called COVID happened, and it kind of was like boop, it's pulled the rug out from under our feet and kind of made it very hard for us to get together and practice and write stuff and all that stuff. So it's kind of.
Have you kicked off again since, or
been trying? I want to get something going again. It would be nice, but there's definitely less of a push to make it my thing now. Yeah, it would be nice to have kind of as like a side project, or maybe see where it goes. But it's definitely a different kind of outlook than it was before. Before COVID, it was like. We're making this. We're going to try and make this happen. So
we'll be there.
Yeah,
we'll be front row.
Cheers, man. Thanks, man. You can get backstage, don't worry.
Yes,
fantastic.
Nice. But yeah, it was a nice kind of opposite thing to do to what I was doing at the time, which is motorsport was all about looking your best and being clean cut and everything, and then I'm at the side, it was just a nice kind of release to have, just to be able to go and do this other stuff. And again, at the same time, that kind of blinkers on, boom or bust kind of thing. Yeah, it felt like I shouldn't be doing that. Once I started getting serious, and I kind of, that obviously then didn't make me too happy about stuff. So yeah.
So as soon as you pulled the trigger, it must have been a relief rather than any regret, or was there any was there any moment when you pulled the trigger on your racing career and you were like, right, that's it, I want to do music? Was there any, or?
Yeah, of course there was. The whole time you're going, is this really the right thing to do? Am I being too finalistic about this? Am I being too kind of just cut it off and stop everything? But at the end of the day, looking back, I'm sure I've made the right choice, because in all honesty, I've seen how modern F1 drivers live and operate at a racetrack. You're basically being chaperoned and ferried around and shoved in front of cameras and doing that a day in, day out. And you've got to be a special kind of person to just be able to put up with that and then get in the car for an hour or two.
Yeah.
And when you look at it on a race weekend, the practice sessions, they have 3 practice sessions which are an hour long. They're maybe not in the car the whole hour. Then they have a qualifying session, and let's be honest, if you're not in the top team, you're not going to be doing the whole qualifying anyway. So you might be in car for maximum 18, minimum 18 minutes, and that's about it. And then you've got an hour and a half race, and then you're kind of like, right, okay, see you next one. It's not really a lot of racing and driving.
Exactly. Also, between that, they're on a plane. They have media duties, so they go to some random country where their teams agreed to do a sponsorship gig. Like talks, like, you know, it's crazy.
Being an F1 driver must be so hard.
Well, again, it's sort of like we said, like, yes, there's the money and the amazingness behind it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I do think about them, because sometimes last year I thought that was full on for me, and then I'm thinking about these guys pretty much, apart from the summer break and stuff, basically every weekend
they are
in a different country. They're never at home, and the season is so long. From March to November?
Yeah.
And they've got basically 2 months off, and that's basically not really off because they've kind of got to be training for the next season.
Yeah.
It is just flat. Like, yes, you have all the money and experiences, but you don't really have the time to sort of enjoy it.
No, you're flat out. I mean, who was it? I think it was, who's that base basketball player follows Lando around the...
Oh.
Yo, please don't go that fast. Yeah? Going too fast!
The guy that had passenger laps and he was at Montreal or something.
Yeah,
he's like,
forgive me.
You're driving. That one.
Oh, you driving.
I think you see that.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. But
Anyway, we'll just edit it in. But I think he said it recently around. It was just like, look, like, they are unbelievable athletes, and not only athletes, but it's like you don't stop. Like, he gets to leave the basketball court, do a bit of media afterwards, and then he's free.
Yeah.
He goes to training sessions, which is maybe a couple of times a week, but other than that, they don't really have to keep going a lot all the time. Whereas, you know, these F1 drivers, they are like, the moment they leave the track, they get home and they might have media duties on the Monday through to the Friday to the next weekend, and then they're back on it again. And then between that, they've got to fit in the training sessions and then the engineering briefings and the design briefings, and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I'm quite happy to say I would crumble in that environment. That is not a me environment whatsoever.
What could happen? You never know if the music career takes off.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the great sort of fantastic thing about music, as well as it just not being, I'm saying this from an outsider's perspective, but it's much less stressful than doing something like F1 in terms of it's like creative. You enjoy doing it. You can do it kind of on your own terms, but also it's not like, right, I didn't start when I was 5 and my dad's not a millionaire, therefore I'm not going to make it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything could happen, and like, you could make it when you're 50. If you decided when you hit 45, you're like, right, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
One TikTok video or something can
literally
blow you through the roof.
Exactly. And and look, I'm not saying that music is my career now. It's like, completely isn't, because I barely made any money out of it when I did it. I was doing jobs, like proper jobs, and I kind of also, that article that said I retired is kind of like, I kind of regret saying retired, and also slightly I mean, I said it and they printed it, so
it makes a good article, doesn't it?
it does. But I mean, I kind of regret saying that retired, because it just means stopped, right? I haven't stopped. I've still got a racing license, you know. I can still pick up, go in a car tomorrow if I wanted to, but
silver graded driver.
Yeah,
I did some research.
thanks, mate.
Well done, mate.
Yeah. But you know, so
Okay. And looping back round, this is sort of off topic,
yeah,
coming back round to racing.
it's about Bop It again.
No, not about the BBC, but in terms of training,
That was a big gulp. I'm really sorry.
yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Got it right in the headphones. I thought I'm inside your esophagus.
Have to clip that.
Oh God, yeah. What? Oh mate, I forgot what I was going to say.
Looping back round.
You're
Looping back round.
off
So
topic.
coming back to say, you know, when you say you're flat out like F1 or nothing type thing, training a lot, and I want to know about how your dad did it as well, because simulators and stuff were they really a big
Not at
thing
all.
back then? No,
Not at all.
So, how did you do your training for racing? What did a week look like in Josh Hill's season?
So when I was younger, it was, I mean, again, like it was only really until I got to like NEC and F3 I started taking the like physical training seriously. I was probably not like the best at going to the gym. I'm still not really. But I definitely enjoy it more now than I did back then. But I think when I was doing my physical training and when I was racing, it was again that kind of thing. It's like, you're telling me to do this specific thing. I kind of want to do other things, and isn't that fine, you know? So
The plate of drums.
yeah, the training for racing. I mean, look, it was really basic. It's only since kind of like the last sort of 5-6 years that it's become to the point where you're like, this is real. This is like nearly real. I still really struggle on simulators. I'm quite happy to say I'm not fast on a simulator. I'm very much about the seat feel and audio and the kind of visceral feeling of being in a car. I think actually gives you a lot of feedback that you do miss out on from just a feedback wheel. And, you know, they've got feedback pedals now, but like, it's just not the same. However, you can definitely, I raced Jan Mardenborough in Formula 3. That was one of his, I think it's like first sort of step into single seater racing in 2013. He's really impressive considering like he didn't have the simulators and the stuff that they have nowadays. You know, he was doing it on Gran Turismo, which all due respect, it's just Gran Turismo. It's kind of an arcade sim, right? Yeah. It's an arcade sim, isn't it? So it's not R Factor. It's not. I've probably like plugging a lot of stuff here. Yeah, not iRacing. I mean, I've only just got iRacing in the last like year. So, and so I didn't really do too much kind of sim stuff or stuff away from the track that was directly related to my driving, because it wasn't really sort of worth it back then. But I did do back then. We did a lot of testing, like in Formula Ford. I remember we just slammed the testing so much because I was so behind. I needed to, so we were basically out nearly every week, somewhere in the UK testing Formula Ford.
Was it your dad's view as well? Was he? Yeah. Is he a bit of a old-fashioned in terms of the simulator stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Chuck him on a sim and he just completely slags it off the whole time.
Really?
He's like, Dad, this is literally like the real thing. And it's like, it's terrible. And you're like, all right. So, but you know, he's from a different era, isn't he? Where they just didn't have that at all. So
even Hamilton hates it.
I think he only uses a Merc sim if he needs to learn a track or something. That's pretty much
and
it.
that'll be 15 minutes on and off. Alonso hates them. Did you see that when Alonso like basically rage quit in a sim race during COVID? Like,
I think I saw something about that.
He's in his 40s now too.
Mate.
It was meant to be like a kind of like fairly semi-serious sim race between like real racers and sim racers, and it was like around Daytona or something like that, and he had such a bad time he just crashed into someone and rage quit. You're like, cool.
Different generation.
I mean, you wouldn't catch Kimi Räikkönen on a simulator any day. It's so there's so much about that kind of seat feel coming through the bottom of the car, you know. And if you've ever tried to drive a simulator with the sound turned off, it's impossible.
It's hard.
It's just impossible. So for me, that's the audio is a big key, a big cue as well. And if that's off, that really throws me off as well. So.
It's interesting because now, like almost everyone coming through is using the sim. Like people in F3, F2 now, they're relentlessly practicing on the sim, like moving up the ranks. Yeah. So if you're not doing it now, you're at a disadvantage. So times have changed a lot. But I was going to actually ask, with your job now, Paddock Club, I wanted to ask a little bit more on what you actually do. So the drivers come in, like the guests, F1 drivers come in, you interview them. What's the main role that you actually do there?
So I started out like most people would do with expert hosts, as doing photo safari, where you kind of load up guests from the Paddock Club into a shuttle van and take them to the inside of a corner somewhere where they wouldn't normally get.
That was my job in Vegas.
I mean, in Vegas it was nice and easy. You walk them there, but it's pretty cool, right? I mean, you're still like right behind the barrier. And
it's like where the media bib people go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a pretty special experience. The depending on the circuit. Some
Yeah.
circuits you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's other circuits you're like, it's a real eye opener. I remember doing it at Barcelona at turn 1, 2, and 3, and then you also get to drive on the interior access road as well. So you're driving alongside the track all the way around to the left hand that goes up the hill, 7, I think, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And then you peel off. So you're basically driving alongside with none of the catch fencing. It's just the kind of concrete barrier.
Yeah.
And the cars are coming past you at full chat, like right next to you. And for the guests, it's just insane. Like just to see that direction change.
Yeah.
The actual speed in real life is insane. So I did that and truck tours, which is that I've mentioned, which is going around the circuit on the back of a big flatbed truck, a bit like the driver's parade truck, and just talking them around the circuit, and which is quite a fun one to do. So we interview drivers as well, like you said. Yeah, so it's good fun, and you get to kind of, it's nice to be able to ask my own questions to the drivers, and it's have a bit of fun with it. It's not like,
just keep it casual. Yeah.
it's not grilling. It's like,
Did you interview me once?
I did, yeah.
I was going to say that must be the highlight,
Yeah,
surely.
I call you Gustav as well.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, that is my name.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought it was just F1 drivers who interview.
No,
it's
so we
me,
do,
bruv.
we do, yeah. We go,
So you have Lando Norris and then
Yeah, you've got like, can you imagine? You've got Lando at 12 and Gus at 1. Honestly,
Yeah.
like a couple of them I did. I think actually the one I did,
it was in Austria.
I think the Austria one, I can't remember. There was one I did that was really like good, and actually loads of people were in the room.
Yeah.
And we just had I had a really like flowy convo and like some jokes in there, and everyone was like, involved and actually listening to me.
Yeah.
But mate, a couple of the other ones I felt like I was literally talking out a microphone to like a room of people all just kind of looking around.
Don't get me
On
wrong.
their
Like that is like
That must be a lot of your job, really.
half the time you get on the microphone is kind of like people don't even realize that you even were there talking on a microphone.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, and you're just telling them about like what interviews are coming up and stuff like that. And I had it once in Qatar where there was a red flag in Qatar, the Grand Prix, I think. Or very long safety
no
car, something
idea.
like that. I remember there's a big shunt, maybe the sprint race. There's a big
Perez
shunt or
and
something
thingy at turn 2 or something. Got
Yeah,
sandwich maybe.
something like that. There was definitely like a stoppage, and that's when we jump in as well.
Yeah.
To kind of keep the energy up in the room, because there's been cases when there's been red flags and people have left to go home, and you're like, because they think that's the end of the race, and you're like, there's a bit more to go.
Yeah.
And there was a case when I got on the microphone and went, sorry guys, that's the first red flag of the session. And the guy sat in the front row, went, oh God, what are you doing? I want to hear them. And you're like going, oh, sorry.
Have you had any like proper embarrassing moments apart from that? Like, be it even interviewing F1 drivers. I know you're probably like kind of in and around that world anyway, but have you had any
embarrassing moments? In Hungary, there was this really strong coffee in the paddock, and I had that coffee, and it gave me the worst anxiety in the entire world. And I was literally like shaking, like I can't stop the shakes. And
So Lando.
I was interviewing.
a session?
Yeah, I just basically looked like I was like shit scared of you. I'm interviewing Yuki Tsunoda. I'm like, he's the nicest guy in the world to interview. Just chats and chats and chats, and I've talked to him before, and it's like I don't get nervous before any driver, because it's just, to me, I still have that kind of like, you're just a competitor.
Yeah.
But you're just another driver, so I kind of understand. But I'm talking to Yuki and I can't get my words out because I've got this coffee coursing through my veins, and I'm like shaking with the microphone. I forget a question. I'm like, sorry, I've forgotten the next question. I was just like, it's just kind of one of it's just those moments. I can't really think of a specific
That's when you just want the
time.
ground to swallow you up. I hate it when you've like forgotten something, and you're like, I rarely public speak to a lot of people because I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
I can do it well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can kind of put it on and just do it. But yeah, those times where I arguably one of the worst feelings in the world when you forget what your next line is or something.
Yeah.
And you're kind of sat there, or you say something stupid, like accidentally, if you're going like for an off the cuff like speech.
Yeah.
And then you can just feel that the silence is like so deafening in the room. Everyone's staring at you. You're
Yeah,
like,
I'm convinced Liam Lawson hates me. If you watch this, Liam, I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to like stitch you up all the time. But Like the last one, he came on. He was like, "You always introduce me so early." I'm just like, I'm trying to just make you swing onto the stage like in a kind of flurry of applause. And there was one time, very early on, when I interviewed him, and I asked him about when we'll next see him on track. And it was kind of just after he'd done his little stint replacing Danny Rick. Yeah. And you could see his like eyes and his expression change. I was like, that was the wrong question to ask. It's just little things. And it's a full kind of like, I kind of understand the brief. It's a full PR interview. I'm just giving the people the platform to talk about themselves in a good light. But sometimes you do miss the mark, and sometimes it happens. Or even if you don't think you have,
it's natural, it's human, isn't it? Like with doing so many, like to be perfect all the time.
Yeah, and these F1 drivers, they're touchy nowadays. They're sort of very touchy about certain subjects, so you've got to be careful. But like, even if you think you've worded it correctly, and then they seem fine with it, and then you come off stage and the PR person goes like, "I don't want you to ask that question again." And you're like, okay.
I've heard from. From like, obviously we've had Enzo on the podcast. We've had a bit of an inside view talking to them sort of behind the scenes. Not him specifically, but people like him as well who coach drivers that have gone into F1 or are currently in F1. And he says like they'll go in for an interview post session if they do an FP1 or something, and they'll be pretty perfect in terms of what they're saying. Like no controversy, no rudeness, no like face like a smacked ass, regardless of what's happening in the session, they've done a good interview.
Yeah.
He just said like after every interview they get pulled alongside, tell them this was wrong, you need to do this better. It's like I feel like it's F1. Part of my problem with Formula One and racing in general is I think there's a lack of personality we're allowed to show, even at like my level or our level. It's like you have people telling you to, or should you post that on Instagram, just because it's like funny and it shows a bit of your personality, and it's not vanilla and I'm racing today, this is the time. I just, it annoys me. You look at other sports, football, whatever it be, they're allowed to, they can do the most outrageous things on pitch, and no one slanders them. Obviously they get a bit of hate here and there, but the sport kind of loves it because it rolls up a bit of a rivalry. I know it should be like a kind of gentleman's thing at the same time. Like there should be some class around F1. Yeah. But I think it's gone too far in terms of PR and stuff like that.
I think when Liberty Media took over and they kind of loosened the grip on social media, that was before, because before it was nothing, right? Yeah. You weren't allowed to do anything. And when that happened, there was this kind of explosion of like, characters in Formula One, because suddenly all these teams who previously couldn't do anything at all could do anything now. And you had people like Lando, who's a great character, Charles Leclerc, George Russell. They're all like,
the team admins can be quite funny as well. On Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's all that was great to happen, but they're kind of trying to reel it back in a bit now. And it always happens when it gets serious, when it gets to the sharp end, because look, back in the day, like when it was Lando with McLaren and it was Carl Lando, they were strong, but they weren't like, they weren't regularly at the front winning races. Whereas now you can definitely feel the kind of shift in the way they want to be perceived, which is totally understandable, because it's at some point you've got to start taking yourself seriously. But you're right. I think people want to see characters, and especially with something like with the rise of Drive to Survive and shows like that, and the way they take on the PR and marketing side of things now. It would be a shame to kind of pull that back and not allow these drivers to show who they are. But it's 100% better than what it was back in the kind of mid 2000s when it was just nothing. No, like you had to be a robot basically.
Well, Drive to Survive and stuff's been great for Formula One, but what's your opinion on that? There's some very mixed views we've had on the podcast as well from people.
I think it was I haven't seen all the seasons. I only watched the first season and like I think the second, and then I watched a bit of the third, and I don't know how many seasons there have been.
There's five.
The first one's the best, I think.
Yeah. I think the first one just hit the nail on the head in terms of showing people what F1 was. Yeah. Because previously, like, no one really knew what it was like behind the scenes.
It's so hard to get into, I think, if you've got no one else into it that you know. I think that's what it's good for.
And my my girlfriend at the time was a complete novice to Formula One. She had no idea about anything to do with it, and COVID kind of made everyone sit at home and watch Netflix. and kind of the only sport on at the time was Formula One, right? There wasn't many other sports going on.
True, yeah.
So people kind of looked for something to watch. They found this thing called Drive to Survive, and it was great. You cannot deny it has transformed F1 and really secured its kind of survival. I think something like that needed to happen. And it's testament to how successful it is that other sports are doing that now. You've got like Full Swing for golf, and there was the NASCAR one as well. They're all doing the same format. It's exactly the same format. I mean, I love watching Full Swing, but I can't help myself sitting there watching at home going, I'm probably just one of those like Drive to Survive fans that people like golfers are like, oh, you're just a Full Swing guy, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, I am.
Swinger.
Yeah.
That's a different episode.
Yeah, that's a different show entirely. But look, I think they maybe down the line then started to kind of push the envelope of believability a little too far.
Yeah.
And it is quite frustrating sitting there as a driver,
knowing what's happened,
and as someone quite close to Formula One, knowing not only what has happened, but what would happen in that situation, and how they've kind of maybe edited it to make it seem different.
Yeah.
I think there was a time when they were definitely kind of stoking the flames a little bit, and inciting riots, if I want to use that term, in the F1 paddock, because it's only recently you've seen this kind of like almost football hooliganism-esque behavior in the F1, in the stands, in the fan zones, in the paddock club, and online. I mean, it is kind of like you said, coming back to F1's got to have a certain amount of class. I think it's Formula One. That's almost the image of it. You can remove everything else, and at the end of the day, it's this kind of you can bring up the kind of old images of Formula One. It's got class, right?
Yeah.
Lots of motorsport has class, but it's definitely classier than other types, And I think it kind of it didn't. There was a kind of duty of responsibility there that they were kind of like poking the beehive with the stick and going, and creating this kind of environment that allowed its show to thrive, and not caring about kind of what actually happened to Formula One.
It's like in movies, like you see with sequels, they take what's been popular in the first episode or installment, and then they're like, right, let's give more of that, more drama, more this, and then it gets maybe a little bit out of control, I guess. But I mean, overall, I think it's been positive. I think it's like I think F1's on a incline, to be fair. Overall, got the movie coming out
with
next
the film
year.
coming out. Stunt driver on it.
Last year.
That's looking pretty good, actually. I was ready to see the trailer and kind of slag it off, but just from past movies. But
Jordan was one of the stunt drivers on it.
Hey,
one of the 6 last year. Yeah,
that's
with
awesome.
Luciano and stuff. Yeah, mind blowing.
The
projects.
Unbelievable. So you do know George Harris then?
Yeah, I know George. Yeah, he came here. Just met him.
We did do a podcast.
Actually, we talked about he talked about your dad. Actually,
he's like him and
the
his family.
The
jetpack.
Yeah.
Honestly, my dad never tells me anything that he's about to do, so he never it's not his responsibility to tell me what he's going to do, but it would be nice to kind of go like, I'm going down the road to remember George? Yeah, of course I know George. He's got a jetpack. Do you want to come and have a go? And I'm like, You know, I just next thing I see is him on Instagram on a jetpack. I'm like, oh, I would have liked to go on that. So George, again, if you're watching, I would like to go on the jetpack, please. But no, George is a good guy.
We had an amazing time.
We need the footage of Damon on that jetpack.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But so yeah,
Is your dad a bit of a thrill seeker? I think I've seen some interviews with him. I think I saw an interview with him where he was like, even stuff like going to the airport, I leave it last minute. So I've like got a bit of like a thrill about it.
That's just his undiagnosed ADHD. I think,
Right, okay.
But, yeah. No, he's totally not a thrill seeker.
Okay.
In fact, like even in his Formula One career, he was all about the risk of it, the risk reward. It was kind of what drove him to retire, because he now had 4 kids, and he didn't want to be. He was left in that situation where, and he didn't want to do that too. So he likes surfing. He likes playing golf, which I wouldn't really class as a thrill-seeking activity.
So he's actually quite calculated and chilled out then.
Yeah, he does. I've never seen him sit still once in my entire life. He's never had a day where he's just, I'm going to have a chill day sitting on the sofa. He's never ever done that.
Right.
He's always got to go and do something, which is again total opposite of myself. Like, I'm quite happy to have a chill day, and I'm much more like my mum in that respect, where we're quite happy to kind of like relax,
Yeah.
So but yeah, I wouldn't class him as a thrill seeker necessarily, because he's always doing stuff with he's done the risk assessment in his head basically. So yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't around for his career, but was there any? Did he have any scares in his life that was the sort of, in terms of racing, like a crash or something, where you guys were like, as a family, were like shit, or was he kept it pretty clean?
I think he was quite lucky in that respect. He's never really had any big shunts. Obviously, going to drive the weekend after Ayrton died was a little bit of a kind of because the questions were still up in the air, like what actually happened. So to have to jump in behind the wheel of that, but I think he says the time he was kind of the most like wired and on the edge in a car was the Japanese Grand Prix in '94, when it was just torrential rain.
Yeah,
and he had to be. Yeah, they stopped the race and then they restarted it with like aggregate time.
Right.
So he had to stay within something like 5 seconds of Schumacher, or I don't know how it worked, but like he was just driving basically on just like on the ragged edge for like half an hour in the pouring rain. You know what it's like back then. It's like it was rain they would not be racing in now.
No,
like it was like aquaplaning and like a mirror.
Yeah.
So I don't really. No, he doesn't. Again, he doesn't. It's not something we really talk about that much. He's actually just come on board as an F1 ambassador in the Paddock Club. So from Hungary, he's been someone I interview,
right.
which is nice,
Yeah.
But it's also kind of strange because it's like
you know all the answers.
You're right,
to the
Dad.
questions.
Yeah.
Right,
I'm not going to go like, there's only so far the interview can really go.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going, so I'll play. When you're going home, when's your flight?
What do you fancy for dinner?
Yeah, exactly. It's so, and it's great fun for everyone else on board because they're like, "Oh, it's going to be so funny," but I'm like, it's really not. And I also don't really want to turn it into some like stand-up comedy routine every single weekend. So, no, I don't really know where I was going with that, but
that's all right. I think I was going to close off with another question.
No. I think I was going to say This we've got one more question, haven't we, for Mr. Hill?
Well, I was going to
building this one up a
do
lot.
this.
That one,
Number
you go for it.
13. All right.
Okay.
Basically, last closing question is what I'm going to change this a bit. Actually, what advice would you give to a young Josh if you could go back?
Ooh. Don't put so much don't be so hard on yourself, I think, because I think when I was racing I was very hard on myself, and I look back on people who are in categories that when I was racing at equivalent levels, seeing their results and going, yeah, they're good pedalers. If you're getting those kind of solid top 10 results every now and then, like, or not even every now and then, just like fairly regularly, then you're doing well. You're doing the job. You know? And I am one of those people that I am not happy unless I deem it to be good enough. You know. And the amount of times I got out of the car and I was like kicking myself and beating myself up, and people going, "It's okay, you know, it's all right." And especially like you've got another race, so you know, no one's going to remember race 2 from the 3rd round of the NEC. You know, I don't. You know, no one's going to remember where you finished. It's all about the kind of highlight results and those kind of things. And looking back on it, probably being pretty hard on myself and my own performances and stuff like that. So yeah, and I think that's probably it really. Just sort of
nice. Enjoy the journey. Obviously, focus on the small wins. I think you take from that as well. Focus on yourself. Yeah,
this is really important to, like we discussed earlier, to just sometimes pinch yourself when you're racing, whatever you're racing, be it at a club level or Porsche Super Cup, Formula 3, whatever you're doing, just to realise how, enjoy it. Yeah. Just don't be like, you know, you've got to enjoy the journey as well as it being a career, because it might not be. And if it is a career, you're going to want to enjoy yourself at the same time.
Yeah, gratitude.
Anyway, on that note,
thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. And thank you for
cool down now, Gus.
I'm hot, mate.
It's warm.
Can you see me?
You're
sweating.
Shiny,
I'm really shiny right now.
Lift your arm.
Huh, mate?
Zoom in on that.
The long sleeve quarter zip on the day last day.
Such a bad decision. Fantastic.
Appreciate you coming.
Thanks,
man.
Joshy.
Love Josh.